Looking for a guaranteed way to create content that resonates with your audience? Start a podcast. Interview your ideal clients and let them choose the topic of the interview. Because if your ideal clients care about the topic, there's a good chance the rest of your audience will care about it too. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to the B2B Growth Show, a podcast dedicated to helping B2B executives achieve explosive growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. I'm Jonathan Green.
And I'm James Carberry.
Let's get into the show. Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. Today we are joined by Andrew Fischer. Andrew is the CEO and co-founder at Choozle. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on, Jonathan. Excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you, Andrew, and today we're going to be talking about sort of this idea, 5 ways that brands are leveraging data to drive better results. And I'm excited to dive in. You sent me sort of the breakdown ahead of time. But before we get into today's topic, I'd love to hear a little about what you and your team at Choozle are doing these days.
Yeah. Again, excited to be here and looking forward to chatting data with you and how we work with brands on a lot of data and our agency partners too. And yeah, I guess, we created Choozle as a self-service, data-driven advertising platform. And we typically work with independent advertising agencies and brands direct to help them leverage data, both first-party and also third-party data, to both build, optimize, and make more effective their digital advertising campaigns. So that's the space we play. We've been doing it for a little over 5 years. We were founded in the fall of 2012 and have continued to grow pretty rapidly. I think we were rated as the Inc.'s 113th fastest growing company last year. And we're excited to help our partners and continue our growth into 2018 and beyond.
That's fantastic. And yeah, actually the Inc. list is definitely one of the reasons that we sat up and took notice and actually reached out to you so that we could kind of tap into your expertise, for our show and share that expertise with our listeners. So you're definitely the right person to be here with us today talking about this. The 5 ways that brands are leveraging data to drive better results. I'd also like to say really quickly, when you said you've been around for 5 years, you founded in 2012, that sounds like 2012 shouldn't have been 5 years ago. I don't know where the time is going, but
I know we're staring down 2020 before we know it here. It's a little crazy.
Oh my goodness, you're not wrong. So yes, congratulations on your 5 years of success. So let's, Andrew, let's just dive in. Where are we starting today? Kind of, I think this idea of there's an interplay between marketing automation, the CRM, and the ad automation. Tell us a little about that.
Yes, absolutely. And again, functionally, we often work out at the advertising agency level because a big part of our platform also is the media or the ad buying piece. But I'll speak kind of from the marketer's point of view, knowing that the agency is typically involved, if not the facilitator of this interplay. Marketing automation, pretty straightforward, whether you're using HubSpot, Marketo, Eloqua, or even, I would say more price-friendly platforms. Basically about communicating with current clients, with prospects, developing sequences, leveraging content in terms of either selling new prospects that you have in your database or cross-selling, upselling, or building relationship for engagement, et cetera. So marketing automation is a pretty straightforward concept that most people are leveraging nowadays. Mm-hmm. And then how that interplays with the CRM, as I mentioned, which is typically going to be your customer database and your customer data platform, the repository of where you keep a lot of that information. And most of those systems, talk pretty seamlessly nowadays where you can get information from your campaigns through your marketing automation, whether it be email or otherwise, and how that can be then appended into a Salesforce as an example on the CRM side. But again, people could be using Zoho, Sugar, any number of CRMs. Then where we would play would be kind of what we call ad automation. And discussing how that data is kind of transferred between the two is kind of to illustrate how we would be leveraged. So a system like Choozle's, which is, what we would call on the demand side of advertising or the buy side, is we can absorb data directly from a CRM system, typically in the form of emails. And then once that data is onboarded into Choozle, we'll do a digital match. So that on the desktop, that would be matched to a cookie, and in a mobile environment to a mobile ID. Match rates typically are between 50 and 70%. If it's a consumer-facing type of CRM list, and if it's B2B, they're typically a bit lower. And once that data is matched, we can provide a couple key pieces, analytics, and so we can provide a ton of rich information on those individual users. And this would be an aggregate anonymized, but we'd be able to tell a client that, hey, did you know that 22% of your current folks in your CRM drive this type of car? They've got this type of purchase behavior. They are in information sciences. They carry a C-level title. Literally tens of thousands of bits of information that we can provide on the analytics side. Then, of course, that then feeds into the media execution piece. So these are our best clients. Let's target them with this type of campaign or model that data and find other people that look like them. So that's kind of the basic interplay between the marketing automation, CRM, and then where we would say would be this advertising automation piece.
Interesting. And so, and I know one of the things that we were also going to talk about today is kind of understanding the difference between first-party data and third-party data. What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can imagine, intuitively, first-party data is essentially data that you own. And the most common relationship for a brand and or its agency is a current customer, someone that's purchased a product from them before, and or someone who has signed up for an email list that has opted in to be a part of a relationship with this brand. And so anytime that data is collected or stored and you've got permission, that would be your first-party data. And it's a highly valuable asset, obviously, and brands more than ever have a lot of ability to leverage that data for growth. And it also becomes even more important, and not to get too far into the weeds, but regulation that's changing in Europe, which is called GDPR, is going to make it even more difficult to leverage anything but first-party data where you've got a direct relationship. So to contrast first-party data with third-party data would almost be thinking of it as other data that you can essentially rent or leverage for the purposes of targeting, setting up campaigns, et cetera. So as an example, within the Choozle system, we have a highly extensive database powered by multiple third-party partners, everyone from, folks like Experian that are in the data field to MasterCard to publicly available census data, et cetera. So these data segments, again, irrespective of whether you have first-party data, you can always leverage third-party data to build a campaign. And then how they often interplay is, onboarding your first-party data, the data that you own, typically customer records. Once you've provided rich analytics and you say, wow, okay, well, we've got a very high propensity for folks that drive this type of car with this type of job level and this geography, then you can model that to the third-party data to create a bigger audience. If that process is automated, it's often called lookalike modeling. And then you can have a bigger pool of third-party data for targeting new prospects, as an example. And that's a pretty common flow, and it's often referred to as account-based marketing. So pulling my accounts, I can set up campaigns specifically to them digitally. By the way, when I'm talking about a campaign, we primarily play in the display world. So think of banner advertising, video advertising, mobile advertising, anywhere across the web. I'm not talking about search and social, which are often complementary, but not from our platform. So that's kind of how you can leverage first-party data to set up campaigns, and also how that would work to third-party data and the distinction between the two. And again, to summarize, first-party data is really the data that you own. That's data you've collected with permission from current clients and prospects.
Yeah. And so, and I know that I'm sure most of our listeners are familiar with the concept of third-party data, but that's also, there's also an investment there. It's like you said, it's data that you are renting or buying, and there's a lot that can go into it. But who you're getting that information from, how it's being scrubbed, that just in terms of the effectiveness of that takes a lot of research to know what you're doing. But I think you also have some ideas on really how to enrich this first party data with analytics. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you should think of Choozle almost as a, kind of your seat into this data space. And we partner with a lot of larger companies, enterprise level companies in the data space, which will include, LiveRamp and Axiom, the Oracle Data Cloud, and their subsidiaries, including BlueKai. And so, Choozle we have our own Choozle ID, so we have a data graph, but the idea is that we're going to enrich your first party data with some of these major companies that are huge holders of their own first party data, which is your third party data that you can match against. And that's what becomes really cool. And one thing that we've done at Choozle is really democratize this based on our partnerships with a lot of these bigger enterprise level players. Whereas it's very difficult to build a relationship directly with Oracle, as you can imagine, just in terms of cost, level of commitment, the time of a contract, we've kind of democratized that. So even if you're a smaller, medium-sized brand or agency, you can leverage the Choozle tools more on a one-off basis, but still get the power of these huge partners. And in effect, that would be, I take my 10,000, 50,000, 5 million email addresses, onboard them into Choozle, and we're automatically going to match them against these multiple third-party data partners. And so it's really neat. Right off the bat, you're going to get all this rich information, and we break it into specific categories of purchase behaviors, B2B data, buyer's intent, demographics. And so as soon as you onboard the data, within 24 hours, you can do really cool things on the analytics level and, the analysis, purely looking at that. Wow. Okay. Look at that. We now understand, the breakdown in gender and demographics and household income and education. And you get even more granular into purchase behaviors and habits. And what's cool about our platform and others that maybe like it is you can start to use that data and analysis to start building out campaigns and say, you know what, we've got a product that we know is going to be for our high income users, but also have these other characteristics. And we can combine those data sets in what we call our audience builder. So you can leverage your first party data matched against the third party data for analytics and then really start to segment and build out specific audience targets. And a campaign could just be limited to those people. You could say, well, I onboarded this list. I know they're recent purchasers, so I want to then segment out and say I want the high income people, so I want to try to resell or cross-sell this product. But also we can model the data, which means an algorithm will take, let's say, your 2,000 best customers are the ones that purchased last month. And then we can use the data that's matched against the third-party data sets to say, here's what these people actually look like. Then let's go find in the universe of North America hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that look like that to create a lookalike audience for targeting as well. So those are some fairly straightaway kind of tools and methods of leveraging first-party data against third-party data for the purpose of typically growth.
Got it. And so, Andrew, let's get into this idea of creating a virtuous digital marketing cycle. Tell me, kind of what that is. I'm drawing a blank. I'm starting from scratch. So, talk to me about it as if I was a child.
Yeah, of course. So unique over the last few years is the amount of data. And again, it can be overwhelming and somewhat intimidating as it's grown, and the overusage of certain terms, including quote unquote big data, et cetera. But in a very straightforward example about creating kind of a virtuous cycle, right? We talked about the first part of that cycle, which would be leveraging of your first party data. And again, I do want to stress that you don't necessarily need to have first party data. Let's say you're a new brand or you're creating a new product sector. You can come in and leverage third party data based on your best guesses. And what's nice about data-driven digital marketing in today's world, especially via a self-service platform, is you can test and iterate very quickly, and that's a part of the cycle. So again, whether the campaign's informed from first-party data or past information, or we're going to start doing some prospecting based on our best hypothesis of who we should be targeting. Those campaigns can be set up very quickly. They can be set up to run. You're going to get real-time information feedback on the success of the campaigns. And again, platforms like Choozle and others, we can do this because we're measuring to a specific action. Typically, that's going to be online. There can be offline triggers as well that can be measured, but as you imagine, the measurement cycle is much more manual and not in real time. But let's say you're a B2B marketer and you're looking to drive downloads of a white paper. Because we have our smart tag container on the client site, we can measure every time that paper is downloaded and then optimize to the source of where that came from. So the data in real time is going to optimize the actual campaign. And it's as simple as thinking of, okay, we served 200,000 impressions, 100,000 here and 100,000 there. The system is basically A/B testing in real time to understand what's successful. And then naturally the system will then push impressions towards the source or the publisher that's producing a higher conversion rate. And it's doing that in real time and not just across two websites, often hundreds, if not thousands in real time to drive the best overall performance to a campaign, again, against a specific action. And in this case, would be the download of a white paper. To kind of complete the cycle, what's cool is the people that we have converted or download the white paper, One, we've captured typically their information via email that can be fed directly back into marketing automation and CRM, of course. But even at the website level on anonymous and aggregate, we're going to measure the analytics on those converters. And so that has already kind of built an audience within the system that says, here's the 2,000 people that downloaded the white paper. We've captured that particular ID. And you know what? We're providing analytics against that subset as well. So of your brand new customers, you have a truly rich information on who they are. You can drill down on who downloaded this white paper. Again, all those same rich analytics that we would provide against your first-party data, we can do it on the website level too. So that informs the campaign and its success and how it worked. And then that particular audience can then, again, be pushed into our audience builder, into the buy side, and or modeled. So often a sequence, maybe now that they've downloaded the white paper, let's serve a sequential message or campaign to them that would make sense after they downloaded it. And or, you know what, let's go find 200,000 people that look like those 2,000 through data modeling and set up another campaign, or, pour more gasoline onto the current campaign. So the data both informs the media execution and the optimization of the campaign itself, and then the results can then be analyzed and automated back into the buy side of the system to kind of create that cycle, the virtuous cycle, as we've discussed.
Very cool. Well, and Andrew, as you mentioned earlier, there is more data than ever, and it can be intimidating to think about, how do I leverage it? What's important? What's not? I mean, it's just, you've got all this information out there. Like, what do I do with it? So it's so fantastic that we're able to bring on experts such as yourself, who obviously know quite a bit about data, to come on the show and sort of share that information with our listeners. So, and Andrew, I had prepped you before we got started. You helped start Choozle, like you said, 5 years ago. We've been asking a lot of our guests. You're a founder, a co-founder, a CEO. What's kind of the legacy that you are looking to leave? I mean, whether it's through Choozle or you're even looking down the road to something else. What does that legacy look like?
Yeah, and I've got many outside interests outside of Choozle that ideally you can pursue at some point down the road. That might be much more meaningful than data-driven advertising. But as we stand here today, my legacy, especially in relation to Choozle and what we've been doing over the last 5 years and what we hope to accomplish over the next several years, it really comes down to the people. And I highly doubt when two formal Choozle employees get together 10 years from now, I doubt they're going to be talking about a specific campaign or a data strategy or a client. They're really going to be talking about their experience of working together. And we've been very intentional about our culture since we started the company, and we've grown to over 60 employees now. And it's my greatest achievement is not necessarily revenue growth and or certain financial metrics or a new product that's been highly innovative, but the fact that we've been consistently recognized, we were recognized as Ad Age's #1 best place to work last year, and our retention rate has been extremely, extremely high. And that's the legacy I want to leave. I want to create an environment and a company that's an excellent place to work. And the one thing I've learned over time too, that's not just about being a cool and or comfortable place to work, right? It's not just about having kegs of beer and ping pong. All those are nice things to have. It's also really about challenging people and having them grow. So we really focus on both sides of that, being a great place to work and achieving that through making people grow and become better employees and better people, hopefully over time as well. So again, I hope that's our legacy, that when people look back and we've got this incredible network and fraternity and sorority down the road, that these folks have had an amazing experience and we've helped to grow their career over time.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, of course, the revenue growth doesn't hurt, but I love that answer. That's fantastic. Andrew, if anyone in our audience, if any of our listeners, they're interested in following up with you about today's topic, or they want to learn more about Choozle, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
Yeah, you can find us online, of course, at our website, choozle.com, CHOOZLE.com. We've got a lot of great information on our product and our platform, a great blog with a lot of information. You can follow me personally at Twitter. I'm at Andrew Fischer _1. Yeah, and we've got our Twitter handle there at Choozle as well. We'd love to hear from anyone that wants to learn more. Yeah, and if you're curious learning more about data-driven advertising and or just want to reach out personally to me, I'd be happy to connect.
Wonderful. Andrew, again, thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on. It's been awesome.
There are lots of ways to build a community, and we've chosen to build the B2B growth community through this podcast. But because of the way podcasts work, it's really hard to engage with our listeners. And without engagement, it's tough to build a great community. So here's what we've decided to do. We're organizing small dinners across the country with our listeners and guests. No sales pitches, no agenda, just great conversations with like-minded people. We'll talk business, we'll talk family, we'll talk goals and dreams. We'll build friendships. So if you'd like to be a part of a B2B growth dinner in a city near you, go to b2bgrowthdinners.com. That's b2bgrowthdinners.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.